I'm Roisin from Moloko and you're watching Dotmusic. I think probably being Irish helps you being into music, and song is really important in Ireland, especially even to my family more so. I think almost everybody I know in Ireland knows about 100 songs from start to finish, and could break out into them at any time. So it's a bit like living in a musical when you're over there. And song is really important. It's kind of a way of communicating almost in Ireland as well. I think there's still a trace of the sort of old storytelling in song, feeling and all that. But I moved to Manchester when I was 12, and was a bit of a weird kid at school because obviously I was different, I was Irish and everything else. And I started hanging around with some boys from the neighbourhood, and just got madly into music, and it was a real escape for me. It was a real saviour for me. So I got into collecting records and going to clubs to see live bands. I couldn't get into nightclubs when I was 14, but I could go and see live gigs. I did try, yeah. And the sort of music I was obsessed with was firstly Sonic Youth, and then on to lots of other stuff like, I don't know, like the Butthole Surfers and like Spaceman 3 and Dinosaur Jr. and all the Sub Pop stuff, and just all sorts of stuff that was around at the time. It was kind of alternative, but not goth, but not rock. And it pretty much, I think that time was a really good time for music in that field, and I still really like the records that I got at that time, and I still listen to them. And then I moved to Sheffield when I was 17, and I'd been going to clubs. I'd started going to clubs in Manchester from about the age of 15 or 16. I lived on my own from sort of late 15, because my mum and dad went back to Ireland, and I got into dance music through hip hop and R&B clubs in Manchester, and then sort of the long way around into more ravey kind of thing.
So where were you going, and what kind of things were you listening to in that period at the hip hop R&B stage?
I was going to a club called Precinct 13 and to the PSV in Manchester, and really scary places that I can't believe that I went to. And I used to go to blues and things in Moss Side with my friend. I didn't even realise there was any danger at all. And of course, when you're like that, nothing ever happens to you. And then my friends started to kind of go out clubbing as well, but they were going to raves and places like to Warrington and Liverpool and stuff like that, and driving at the weekend, going and finding places. And it took me a while to get into that, but I did in the end. Started raving a little bit. Then I moved to Sheffield, and I found that Sheffield's club scene was much more, when I was 17, was much more eclectic, and the sort of musical policy in some areas of the music scene there was very open, and it was about being funky really, whether it would be kind of rare groove or sort of modern R&B mixed, or deep house music, or bleepy techno. It's always kind of very soulful somehow. It's always quite funky, and I think they were very formative experiences for me, listening to DJs like Winston Hazel in Sheffield, who would do all that, mix all that up, and drop like versions, B-sides of ragga tracks in there as well, next to sort of bleepy house music, and that really, I still can't really think of any better parties that I've been to than those parties in Sheffield. When I moved to Sheffield, I met the guys from Warp. They were like the first people I met there, really, because they were friends of my boyfriend at the time.
Not a bad introduction.
I know, it was great, and and I met Winston, and I met Parrot, and all these people, and I met Mark, and Mark was the one who thought I could be maybe quite interesting to record, not as a singer, but just as a sort of oddity, really. I think he quite fancied me and wanted to show me his big equipment in his studio, so to impress me as well as anything else. And it was just a fun night. The first night I met him, I went down to the studio and recorded that little blip, and then we got to know each other a bit more, and then we were out again at another party and I started saying, oh my God, look at all these party weirdos, and I was being like a valley girl. I was channeling a valley girl, even though I'd never been to America. And we went down to the studio again in the middle of the night and recorded that. And then his manager had a couple of instrumental tracks that Mark had already done, so he put them all together under one name and brought them down to London, and lots of people were interested because it sounded really different. It was really quirky, and then we got signed for 6 albums.
So how long after that was? How long between your meeting, recording, and signing the deal?
Oh, God, not long, 4 months, 5 months between meeting and signing the record deal.